Welcome into the pump fake, everybody. We are just days away from Combine Week, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Jarrett Bailey with you as always. Mike Tanier joining me from Two Deep Zone on Substack. Mike and I will both be in Indy next week, so that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing you again, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm still recovering a little bit from. We had a little celebration here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I did not
Were you climbing telephone poles in New Jersey? Was that a?
Now, the night of the Super Bowl itself, I went running, careening to the local bar, which was full of local bar people.
Right.
For the parade itself, I got less and less enthusiastic as some of the friends I might have gone with said they weren't going. And it's like I have a lovely bar that I can go to and watch the parade on TV with dozens and dozens of other Eagles fans and just drink beer in comfort. And that's what I wound up doing. So I wound up getting kind of lit by kind of 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like not in the best headspace as of
right.
And my wife and son came and got me and brought me home and but it was a wonderful week.
I envy that. I want to experience that as an adult, which I haven't done in any capacity yet. The last time I was able to celebrate anything like that, I was still only in like 4th grade. So it doesn't hit the same.
Yeah, I was jealous of my sons who are on college campuses. Philadelphia area. So they can sort of they were having a parade. They had their own parade. I don't know if they climbed anything, but apparently, all hell broke loose and they had a good time doing that stuff. Because that ship has sailed forever for me. So I can kind of do this as this older guy. The only chance I had was a Phillies 1980, and I wasn't a Phillies fan.
Right.
So I was hanging around a Catholic school playground.
Even around here, there was at the Pitt campus, a bunch of people went pretty crazy. So I guess there's a large Eagles fan presence at the University of Pittsburgh. If anybody was curious about that, yeah. So I mean, good for them and good for everybody who got to celebrate.
Maybe there were Steelers and Bills fans who are rooting for the Eagles to beat the Chiefs.
Maybe that too. I'm trying to think of any other potential reason that people would go crazy. Maybe the Kenny.
Campus?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Maybe they were all really happy Kenny Pickett got a Super Bowl ring. I don't know.
That's perfect. Yes. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, all the Pitt kids are just really happy that their former Lord and Savior went somewhere and got a ring as a bag. I mean, he got snaps, so good for him.
Yes.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I don't know how we're using Kenny Pickett to segue here, but here we go.
Actually perfect because this quarterback free agent class is hellacious.
It's not great. And today we're going to play the quarterback carousel game where we try to piece in where a lot of these guys are going to land. And there's a lot of them, both free agent wise and like potential trade wise. I got a list in front of me of where certain people could go. I'll start. I mean, we talked about Pittsburgh. We'll start in Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be Justin Fields. I think any sort of this, the Jets are interested and he's interested in the Jets. Like, I'm sure that there is some interest, but at the same time, I think that if you're Justin Fields, you'd probably rather just stay in Pittsburgh in terms of like, I'm incredibly critical of the Steelers and whatnot, and their just lack of ability to evolve, but they are at least stable. And in terms of, the stability scale, you're going from Pittsburgh to like the New York Jets, who are like the NFL's version of Gary Busey, where you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like,
you're pulling Gary Busey. What is your Gary Busey touchstone that you have him queued up for this?
I don't know. I was thinking, I don't know how it came to mind. I know 2 Gary Busey movies. I know Under Siege and I know Lethal Weapon. That's the extent of my Gary Busey like movie knowledge. I know that I think he have like some sort of head injury at some point that kind of.
Maybe, or it was just a kiloton of cocaine. I'm not
maybe
sure.
that might have something to do with it. Yeah.
But he is accurately somebody who like didn't get a lot of roles after a while because you didn't know what you were going to get when he was coming on screen, and sometimes on screen that comes through.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what you kind of have with the New York Jets. And like, I think the Aaron Glenn hires is a good one, but I also said that about Robert Saleh, and we know how that turned out. So with the Jets, it's one of those situations where if I'm a guy, especially like Justin Fields, who this would be like his last chance of proving that he can be like a starting caliber quarterback, I don't want to take any chances and go to the Jets and potentially ruin that. I'll stay with a stable organization where at least I know I could be put in position to succeed rather than with the Jets where it's very up in the air.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea the Steelers would possibly look to him and say, looking at our options right here, and of all the teams that can say we can wait a year. Like the Steelers always can wait a year. The Steelers been waiting a year for 14 years.
I've been waiting a year for 5 years.
Yeah, they'll just wait another year. They could put an offer in front of him that if you match it, he's just going to stay put. You're right. The Jets is just I can't imagine a free agent, and you're Justin Fields and you're a free agent, and the offer sheets come in, and maybe one comes in from some team to be a backup, and the Steelers put one in front of you, and maybe the Browns send you something or whatever, and you look at that Jets one and say, "Oh, this is the job for me. This is the job for me. This is my chance." You look at that and say, "This is just a steel trap. It's going to swallow up what's left of my career."
Yeah,
like you better off hiding on the bench behind Josh Allen.
Yeah,
and then
that's what Mitch Trubisky did for a year, and then he got a job with Pittsburgh, and they were like, "Oh, that was a horrible idea."
Right. But you get this other chance coming out. Maybe week 18 next year I look great, and then I get the other chance. Then just going to the Jets and saying it's over. I'm taking one more paycheck, and I'm going to fall off the face of the planet here with this team. So I can see Steelers just saying, "Yeah, Fields is our guy, and we're saving the money, and we're going to extend other people, and we'll figure out what's going on with quarterback in 2026."
Yeah, and like Pittsburgh's going to be one of those teams that I agree that next year. Again, if you have Fields, you'll probably just have somewhat of a repeat of this year. You'll win 10 games, maybe get into the playoffs, get beat to hell in the wild card round. And then at that point, you just got to try to trade up for a guy in the draft. Depending on how deep it is, maybe you wait and just sit where you are in the draft and hopefully take one there.
You can mess around with Milrow, which I don't think is going to amount to anything.
Sure.
Mess around with Will Howard or something like that, and see if it amounts to anything. Like in the second round, third round, so you're not completely spacing on the idea that you're trying to find somebody else.
Sure. And I think best case scenario, if they do bring back Fields, is like, all right, it's going to be a cheap deal for a quarterback. We'll have a lot of money to put pieces around you for you to really prove to us that you can be the guy. And if he proves that he's not, then at least you have those pieces in place for whoever is in 2026.
Yeah, you can grab the receiver, you can grab the offensive lineman, whether it's free agency or that's what your first round pick turns out being.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's go to Sam Darnold. I have a fun theory on this one. I think Sam Darnold, at least in my mind, something that could happen, hasn't really been speculated at all, but it's just something that I have in my head. The Indianapolis Colts sign Sam Darnold, and then in turn trade Anthony Richardson to the Rams, and he sits behind Stafford for like a year or two, and then Sean McVay spends that time trying to mold him into being maybe the next guy in line once Matthew Stafford retires.
That's a lot there.
That is a lot. Yeah, I mean, look, it's February 21st. We're going to be doing a lot until the new league year begins.
I was watching a lot of Shedeur Sanders this week.
Yeah.
Going on that journey. and it was like, any team at the top, this is going to wind up being extremely combustible. This is going to be a mess. And I landed on, boy, if the Rams drafted Sanders,
they
have the ability to keep Coach Prime away because they've got a Super Bowl winning coach and everything else like that. And like, you go chirp, you're not going to like get me fired. You're not going to get Sean McVay fired, whatever. And it's like, you are sitting behind Stafford for a year. This is Stafford. You're going to sit behind him for a year. And like, it would sort of like absorb all of that baggage, so to speak. But I don't see anyone like rushing out to trade for Richardson at this stage is odd. I guess the one thing that you would have going for it is this draft class is so weak that you say, well, he's more talented than any of these guys. But
that's a good point. What would he garner in terms of the trade market? Like I wouldn't be like a super high pick. I think like a third at most, maybe. I think
like a fourth. Because the moment you put, and this came up with the Colts, I think, with Wentz, the moment you put him on the market,
his value goes down. Yeah.
You're telling us what you think of his value.
Yes, exactly.
Right. You have him under contract. He was the fourth overall pick. You have him under contract for 2 more years, and you're trying to trade him. You've told me everything you need to know. So, like, the Colts get themselves stuck in this situation so well. And, like, their best bet is to try to work with him. Now, bringing Darnold in and being like, this is it, buddy.
Yeah.
This is a potential starter right here. That's one thing. I'm going to go with what Matt Lombardo said. It's like, the Titans should just grab him.
You think that's something that they'll do?
I have no idea. I don't even know who this Titans GM is.
Yeah, who is the Titans GM? I honestly don't know who the Titans GM is at the top of my head right now.
They went from right. I maybe wait. Do I have the combine speaking schedule up?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was emailed out. The Titans GM right now, by the way, is Mike Borgonzi.
Yeah, Borgonzi.
Yeah.
Face on. Right. I don't know what he's capable of, but
right.
and I think Cam Ward. I mean, that's fine if that's your first overall pick. That's fine, but it's something to be said for maybe this isn't the year to just go quarterback fishing,
right?
And grab a Darnold and say this is it for 2 or 3 years. It worked with Tanier, almost the same situation. That might be why it popped into my head there. But here's the thing with all these guys: Darnold's the only one I would even want. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't want Justin Fields on like some cheap contract for a year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Darnold's the only one I can say, you know what? If we start him for a year, it's fine.
Right.
Fine. Like,
he at least showed last year, all things considered with, it was with, a really good offensive minded head coach and really good weapons, something that Tennessee may not necessarily have, but Darnold still played well through 35 touchdown passes. That doesn't just happen without at least some semblance of talent. So that's something that you could feel good about as an organization.
Right. If you're bringing him in here, he's not going to be the problem for a year or two while you solve other problems.
Yeah.
And I know, well, then how do you get the quarterback if you don't have the number one pick? Whatever. These things kind of work themselves out. But
you could go the Chiefs and Bills route and just trade up. That's how the Chiefs got Mahomes. That's how the Bills got Allen. So you might just have to get aggressive at some point and move up in the draft.
Or somebody does slip to you in a future year. There's other reasons to do this. But like the Darnold thing is interesting because, again, here he is. He's probably the best free agent on the market. And the two of the teams that need the free agent quarterback are both in New York, and it seems unlikely that he would want to return to New York.
Right.
Which creates this weird lateral thing. Like only Sam Darnold could put himself in this position. He's the best quarterback, but there's not a lot of jobs available to him because he screwed up an entire city, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. In terms of the Richardson thing, I mean, the combine's next week, and we know that Chris Ballard doesn't mind speaking his mind at podiums. So
God, that's right.
Do you remember a few years ago where he just went scorched earth on Carson Wentz?
Yeah, my brain broke on that one. And again, it would be perfect because we already had like Quessy and O'Donnell saying, O'Connell, Sam has earned the right to find another job. He's earned the right to seek employment elsewhere. You've earned the right to date other people while I date other people.
Oh, my God.
Had one of those, and that Ballard go out there and say, like, yeah, you know what? We don't like Anthony Richardson, and we don't like Darnold either. We're going in a completely different direction. We're just signing Flacco for 4 years.
Right.
Like, why are you always stuck with the straightest shooters? Maybe it's because you spent 1 year with Matt Rule comparing himself to Jay-Z, and now you're like,
yeah, that'll do it. Oh, goodness gracious. That I don't have any semblance of like coverage with the Colts or anything. I always make it a point to go to Ballard's presser just to see what he says.
Right. Well, I mean, this will be a good one for that. And maybe Steakin will be better, but I think he's talking at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
Hope to either be having a drink or writing something at that point. But just start drilling down on the Richardson thing because they'll spill tea. They'll send a message. They'll be like, well, you know what? We all have to do better to get him. Like he's got to actually like find the second read sometime ever. He's got to figure out how mesh works. Because we run mesh. I haven't looked in late season stuff for the Colts. Like we run mesh about 15 times a game, and I don't think I've ever seen him hit a crosser.
Right. Yeah, it can't just be scrambles and piss missiles. There's got to be some semblance of intermediate and short game, which there hasn't. Which, by the way, Shane Steichen is very good at drawing up the short game stuff and the easy completions and whatnot. It's just you got to find the quarterback that's capable of doing that. Do they think that they can mold Richardson into doing that? I don't know. So it'll be.
Are we, by the way, going to do Cousins? Are we going to do the thing where we assume Cousins is?
I have him on the list just because, like, if you're Atlanta, it's pretty clear that you're going with Penix. I don't think anybody's going to trade for that. The way that they structure the contract, it looks like they can release him without it being like horribly catastrophic against the cap. But even so, they're a team that isn't paying Boku bucks for a ton of people, so it's not going to like kill them. They've got a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and it's like 28 this year and 28
something like that. Yeah,
right. But and then like I had it wrong. I was writing about it. I think Breer said like the other team that signs him can kind of just sign him for his base salary now. They don't have to sign him, and because he's getting compensated elsewhere, they can kind of get Cousins on the cheap. Although
similar to what Russell Wilson did last year, where he's still getting paid by Denver, so he signed for like the vet minimum in Pittsburgh.
Right. Although, man, like Cousins, I mean, I guess Wilson on that level was the same thing. Like I can't believe it's come to this. But like the story then becomes, well, the Browns bringing Cousins.
That's where I'm penciling him at right now, just because of the connective tissue with him and Stefanski. They were together in Minnesota for a little bit. And when you look at how the Browns have succeeded in recent years with just like bottom of the barrel quarterback play and a magic carpet ride of Joe Flacco, like they don't need a superstar to get them to the playoffs. And Kirk, like obviously this past season wasn't a good look for him. It didn't look like he could move, which wasn't good.
Right.
And if he can't, then yeah, that's something to pay attention to, because like his biggest skill is play action bootlegs, getting out of the pocket, and doing things of that nature. If you can't do that, then yeah, I think that teams would be very hesitant to put him out there. But in the situation of Cleveland, where you're putting out, guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Bailey Zappi, like it can't be worse than that. And I think that Cousins at bare minimum is still, a starting caliber quarterback. It might be, between 28 and 32 at the worst, but it's still better than putting out Zappi and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So that can make sense.
You can't just bring in Shedeur because Deion might say no.
Yeah.
To the Browns, Deion might just say no and start that whole train going. And you are not equipped to handle that in Cleveland.
Right.
But the other thing about this
go ahead.
This isn't that Browns team from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett's going to be traded. I don't care what Barry says. He's going to have to trade Myles Garrett. He's not going to, I'll just come back into the fold and be fine here. And then you look, the receiving core has been gutted from a couple of years ago. The offensive line has gotten older. Nick Chubb wants to stay, but do you want him even at this point? You could be looking at, you're bringing in Cousins to a sub-Falcons roster.
Right.
And like, how are you going to get anything out of that? At that point, you might as well try to get a rookie, or bring in Darnold for cheap, but you won't be able to afford Darnold, I don't think. That's the thing.
Like, Sam would make sense, like, just, okay, yeah, you can get Sam Darnold with Kevin Stefanski. That's great, but he's going to be too expensive, I think.
Right. Because, again, they're going to be eating, whether they keep Watson or figure out a way of releasing him, they're going to be eating tens of millions of dollars.
Right. And, yeah, the roster-wise, like, it'll be if and when they trade Garrett will also be indicative of this. Like, if they do it right when the new league year starts, then okay, you've got some a lot more draft capital work with. You can decide if you want to use one of those on a quarterback, or if you want to go the vet route. Like, if it's not Cousins, like, what other vet route would they go? Because they're not bringing in Russell Wilson, I don't think.
That would be amazing.
Oh, Lord in heaven, would it be funny?
You can't move anymore, Russ, but here's a team, again, it's offensive line, which was great 2 years ago, starting to dilapidate. There's no one to throw to, and you got the scuzzball hanging around. So, like, the combination of weird personalities in this quarterback room is absolutely off the charts. But if they do, you get a Garrett trade done, you theoretically could trade from 2 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the Titans saying, well, maybe we take Shedeur, maybe we take Sam Darnold. These extra bouquet of picks can help us save other problems. Then you just get Cam Ward.
Sure.
And you're like, well, we just got Cam Ward, and we're going to figure out the Watson situation, but this is our starting quarterback.
And if they go the other route and still don't take a quarterback, you have extra pieces later where what if they're the team that's just like, fuck it, we'll take Jackson Dart, I guess. We'll see what he can do. Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. I mean, people are talking Dart into the
he's become so polarizing for whatever reason. Like, our good friend Doug Farrar seems to really like him.
I have no idea. I was like, get away from my table at breakfast. I was like, get away from my table, Doug. Get out, go away. Don't even hit me. And he don't want to hear that. He's like, yeah, okay. No Jackson Dart. No.
And like, I'm not gonna pretend that I've watched all of Jackson Dart and every snap that he's ever played or anything, but there just seems to be a lot of Zach Wilson-y type stuff here where it's like, he's got a big arm, and it's like, yeah, but there's some underlying other stuff that just doesn't add up to be a pro quarterback.
It's like play action floaters from the pocket, from a super clean pocket, just sort of middle of the field out, the Harris to throw to, etc. And like, he has this very defined skill set that he can do very well, kind of like a Jared Goff type of thing. It's like, I don't want the SEC's Jared Goff, because the SEC's Jared Goff does not turn into Jared Goff. He turns into Kyle Trask.
Sure.
Right.
Which, by the way, everybody had like a boner for Kyle Trask a few years ago, and he's been the Bucks backup forever.
And he's in this free agent pool. I mean, and I think Dart's better than Trask, but there was a real similarity there where this was a guy who could sit in the pocket, and he had the tight end Pitts and these other guys, and he could just float balls, like just touch pass, touch pass, touch pass. And then you see like there's a little bit of pressure and things like that, and the ball starts skittering all over Lord's creation. It's like, I know who you are. And then we saw him in Mobile, and there wasn't a whole lot of there.
Yeah, wasn't good.
Right. But anyway, I think Connor Rogers likes him. I'll watch more. Maybe I'll.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of smart people who seem to like some stuff there, and that's that's fine. Every prospect to an extent has at least some aspect of the game to like.
Yes.
And Dart seems to be the deep ball guy who just launches it deep, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. But we've seen plenty of guys who come into the league with a ginormous arm, and can't really. Best case scenario, what's he gonna? Is he gonna be Jeff George?
Well, George was an asshole.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jeff George is just a prick. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean George had the best arm I think I've ever seen. If you combine the best stuff that people say about Herbert or Stafford or whoever, George was better. He was just complete POS. He was just like uncoachable jerk. So that kind of happened. But like, it's not even that with Dart, because I don't think the arm's that good. When I see these guys and it's just like with a perfect mechanics and delivery, and the ball kind of floats out there, and it's like, oh, look at that. It was a 55-yard pass. It's like, It was a floater. It took a while to get there.
Yeah.
Show me the 20-yard laser, like Caleb Williams can throw, the absolute laser and stuff like that. But until then, I mean, I've seen like guys who are 4th, 5th round picks. I've seen all these Pac-12 quarterbacks over the years that like people got DraftKings got gaga about. You start naming Pac-12 quarterbacks, and I'll be like, oh god, I remember this.
Oh man, who were some good Pac-12 quarterbacks of yesteryear?
Luke
Falk. Carson Strong.
Oh well, God, that's a great example. Why do you keep bringing him up? You bring him up on purpose to get me triggered.
It's you and Verderam were just so pissed about that, and it was so funny.
He has such a rocket arm. One pass out of every 3 doesn't even get there. He had a bunch of long passes from a whistle clean pocket that he almost like took a 2-step launch to do. And people were like, well, this guy, and then of course he couldn't handle himself in an interview. He had all these other problems.
Right. All right. Let's move on from the Browns and Kirk here. Do you think that Aaron Rodgers retires, or is he going to keep going?
Well, he gave a bunch of quotes very recently, like last night or today, and it's like, well, the team that wants me, has to be competitive, and has to be this and has to be that, and it's like those teams don't need 41-year-old quarterbacks, you dipshit. Right. Yeah, if the Bills want me, they pick up the phone and want me to take over for Josh Allen, which I 100% could. Like he knows. I think he's not ready. He's broadcasting. Well, I'm the one being selective and picky because he knows it's going to wind up getting like a 1-year offer from the freaking Titans, and he's going to have to scoff at this thing. But like, do you have a landing spot for him besides fucking Division of Health and Human Services or something?
If something doesn't come together with Justin Fields, I think Pittsburgh is a realistic option.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, him and Mike Tomlin have a good rapport. Any chance that he gets to like praise Mike Tomlin, he always does it. Those two there's a lot of mutual respect there, and I wouldn't be surprised. George Pickens recently went on some show and was like, "Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is like a dream teammate of mine." Which, by the way, Aaron Rodgers and George Pickens in the same locker room. What could go wrong?
It sounds amazing. It sounds absolutely amazing.
So I think that if Fields does go to like the Jets or something, I think that the Steelers could kind of be left being like, well, Aaron Rodgers, like realistically, was probably better than both quarterbacks we had last year. So, we'll bring him in for a year.
I'm not so sure. You look at the statistics, Fields and Wilson, without even putting rushing in for Fields, had like better DVOA, DER, QBR. They both did than Rodgers.
Oh, yeah. Justin Fields in the first 6, I fully believe that Fields makes the most sense for Pittsburgh. He played like fine in the 6 games that he started. Obviously has the legs thing going to his advantage, where he might not be the passer that like a Rodgers still is, or that a Wilson was last year with the deep ball, but he's 25. It makes a lot more sense to go with him for a year. But like I said, if something doesn't come to fruition, I think that Rodgers would be their second option, because who else are you going to I don't think you bring Russ back. I think that would be the worst thing that they could do personally.
Right. Like all the things that we say about Darnold are true about Russ. At the end of that season, it's like this guy's got nothing left. Like Darnold went out there in the playoffs and was having bad games. Russ, that starts kicking in about week 16.
It was probably earlier than that. The Philadelphia game in Philadelphia, where they just got the hell beat out of them. Like they couldn't do anything offense. It was very frustrating.
Right. And then that happens, I think, against the Chiefs and against somebody else. And it's like this guy, what we saw for a couple of weeks early in the season was element of surprise and a couple of bombs to Pickens and what you usually see in Pittsburgh, which is, the other team only scored 13 points. It's really easy to win, and you came back to get the win. But Rodgers, you're right. There's one coach, and it's Tomlin, where the two of them could like talk each other into thinking, this will work out for a year. It'll be disastrous.
Oh no, and look, they'll still win 9 or 10 games, and it'll be the same situation with whoever the quarterback is. They'll win 10 games, backdoor into the playoffs as a 7 or 6 seed, and then lose. But I'm sure Aaron Rodgers wouldn't mind signing up for going to a situation with Mike Tomlin where he could all but guaranteed get some wins.
Yeah, and it's a tiny press pool there, and it's a very compliant. Like there's nobody sniffing around for stories.
No, there is not.
Not at the Jets level. So I don't want to act like there's nobody there who cares about their job or anything like that. But there's 4 veteran beat writers and 6 others. And you can just go out there and spout your thing, and then Tomlin will say enough's enough, and then that's the it. It's not like New York where you're on this constant churn of
right. So outside of Pittsburgh, though, I don't know. You said Tennessee. I think one maybe would be if the Seahawks traded Geno Smith somewhere. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's one to look at.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I'm trying to wrap my brain around the combination of choices that has Schneider making that phone call.
Right.
Bringing him into that city, that bluer than blue city, and trying to sell him on that. That starts becoming one of the factors here where you've got somebody who's got these political overtones.
Right.
He's going to be a face of the franchise guy, and we're bringing him here to Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, 20 miles from the Canadian border, and we're going to sell this guy as a franchise. He's going to start talking about fucking measles and shit.
Maybe Indianapolis could be a spot for that. They were the spot for Wentz. Maybe they could go with that again.
Because Irsay loses his mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And the two of them start doing hallucinogens together, and Bauer's like, I can't control this anymore. It's out of my hands.
Yep.
And then we hear about how Anthony Richardson is following him around and learning so much from him.
Right. I mean, honestly, the more we talk about the Colts, I think it would be very similar to the Zach Wilson situation where Zach Wilson stays in New York. They're like, we're going to have Aaron be a mentor. As soon as he's done, we're going to try with Anthony again. And then it just goes to hell. Yeah, I could see that being a thing.
They told that story so hard. Like, look what Zach Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Look what he's the sponge and everything. Like, yeah. Okay. I don't know when I'm being told a narrative. Like, I don't know if you told it. Tell me a fairy tale. I know, Peter, I know you were one of the people who was in on this, but like they're telling you what they know will sell. Sure,
exactly. But yeah, I think Indianapolis is like a greater than 0% chance. Yeah. Now that I keep talking myself into it.
Yeah, you're hitting these like 1%, 2%, 3% chances.
Yeah,
and maybe 10% at Steelers, but like you only get to about 15 or 20%, and the other 85% is he is taking a year off. And he's going to host a show.
Or you think he could do year off and then come back in 26?
He thinks it. It's not what I think. It's what
he'll take a year off, host Jeopardy, and then come back like next January. There'll be rumors. Hey, Aaron Rodgers stayed in great shape, and that year off really helped him get better.
Right, and like have this weird Belichickian thing where it's like, wait, he's coaching somewhere now, or like some. He's commissioner of the XFL or some offbeat thing where he ends up back in, but he still wants to quarterback and
he's playing for some European league called the London Bridges. Like what the? Like, all right, sure.
He's playing hockey now, and the Jeopardy job is not open, by the way. That job is long gone.
So I don't keep up with Jeopardy stuff, right. So then never mind.
Right. Ken Jennings, who was the Tom Brady of Jeopardy, took over as the host, and it's phenomenal. He's not like the Tom Brady of host.
Okay, well, good.
Right, so it would have to be like the Joker's Wild or Whammy's, the Whammy Show or something like that. Press your luck.
There's a who does the bit about it? I'm gonna forget. But when Pat Sajak stepped away from Wheel of Fortune, and somebody else took over as host, but they still have Pat Sajak as a consultant on the show. It's like, what do you need a consultant for? The show's been the same forever. Like, what are you consulting, Pat?
It's literally like when the coach like resigns, but he's still a consultant, so he can't get hired someplace else.
Right.
So Pat Sajak doesn't wind up on Celebrity Hangman on Netflix, where it's like, wait a minute, that's the same show. Like, I'm going to bring the audience. That must be it. It's got to be something.
That's a decent point. Yeah, I didn't think of it in that light. Okay, we'll go from Rodgers to Wilson here. The Giants seem to be a team that keeps getting connected to him, but if I'm the Giants, what's Russell Wilson solving for me? Absolutely nothing. That doesn't move the needle for me whatsoever. Minus like 2 deep connections to Malik Neighbors per game, which could be the difference in a 4-13 season and a 6-11 season. I don't think Russell Wilson's turning things around in New York and taking you to the wild card round.
Kind of think he's done.
I think so, right? Like that just makes what he did this past year, he is not eclipsing that. He's not reaching that again. I don't think that there's a reason. I think he proved what he needed to prove, which was I'm better than what I did in Denver. He was that in Pittsburgh, no matter how it ended. Like he had a 400-yard passing game against the Bengals and they put up 45 points. You're not getting back to that, dude. I think that's what he should do is just, all right, great career. I think future Hall of Famer, gonna call it.
Right. And I'll call it a borderline case, but whatever. If you want to hang around for a year and back up Lamar,
that would be sure.
And like all these other places where it's like, oh, he's doing a extreme mentoring thing, or it's, oh my God, somebody got hurt at the playoffs. Here comes Russell Wilson off the bench, fresh, throw his 2 bombs and not give a crap with 2 minutes left of a tie ball game. Like, yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. And like that might be the best of him. But here's another guy who could host shows. This is a guy who has television hosting experience and other multimedia experience he could go into. But the Giants. Well, I mean, one of the problems is what's the Giants' solution?
Yeah, I don't know.
So much of these, well, he's connected here, or we played matchmaker here. There's not enough good matches. So when you start saying things, Wilson goes to the Giants because the Giants won't be in position to draft anybody besides Jackson Dart, and they can't bring in Sam Darnold because he's in New York and that he's already failed in the market. So by default. You put Russell Wilson in there and click him in there. I don't know how this will actually play out. I got in trouble on Blue Sky, like when Andy Dalton re-signed with the Panthers, and I was like, well, that tells you all you need to know about the quarterback market is that the Panthers don't want Andy Dalton out there. And all these geniuses who are parroting Mike Florio, I was like, don't you know that they're happy with his mentorship of Young and everything else like that? I was like, yeah, I do. There's a lot of teams that are happy with mentorship all the time and don't bother re-signing the guy.
Right.
Because the mentorship's supposed to end.
It's a mutual agreement. We're going to keep you around for 2 years, help this guy out, and then once it's done, we'll probably let you on. They're looking at the backup quarterback market being like, nah, we're keeping you around, Andrew.
We don't want this in the backup quarterback market, and we don't want the Titans or somebody else saying, that's our bridge. Andy Dalton's a bridge starter now.
Right.
The Giants say, oh my God, we can get Andy Dalton in here for 2 years at $18 million and just worry about quarterback, and we get competence while we fix other things. Panthers are having none of this. And so stay here. You've already got your house, whatever, and you'll probably end up starting at 4 or 5 games a year.
And by the way, if I'm Andy Dalton, that's a sick deal to me. Like I've had my time of being a franchise quarterback. Now I can just live in a warm state. Be a good backup, be handsome with a great beard, great hair, and not have to lose my great beard and great hair to it turning gray and falling out while I'm trying to lead the Giants to relevance working with Brian Dable. I'm good.
Right. Brian Dable, who will be fired in October. Yeah. Or if they draft Shedeur on like September 19th.
Sure. Yeah. They'll start 0-4, and then there'll be some report leaked by Deion's camp be like, Shedeur doesn't like Brian Dable, and then Mara will be immediately like, fuck, all right, I guess we're gonna start doing this now and just mail it in for the rest of the year, knowing that it's done.
How much with Shedeur as you try to do draft evaluation? Are you taking? Well, he's this prospect, but because of his dad, how far are you?
I feel like there's so much similarities between Shedeur and Deion to what there was with Lonzo and LeVar Ball in basketball.
Yeah.
And like, even so much down to the fact that Prime had some toes removed. LeVar Ball just had his foot removed. Like, hey, there's some parallels here.
Wow.
Was that a mean joke? I'm sorry.
No, it's not. I mean, but like, and I see it, except I don't know NBA's
I don't follow the NBA so much anymore, but like at the time, like LeVar Ball was like quite literally one of the biggest names in sports because he was going on every show talking about like basically the same thing that like is being leaked about Deion. Like, all right, he's gonna, have some thoughts about where his kid goes, and he'll try to lead him in a direction where, if X team wants to draft him, he'll kind of intervene. Right. I think it's similar to that where the media makes a little bit more, like we'll make a big deal out of it and it's not going to be as big a deal, but it's not going to be not a deal either.